What's up, fam? Welcome back to the Well, That's Good podcast. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Y'all, we are 1 week away. Well, 1 week, maybe 2 weeks away, I guess, from our LO Sister Conference. I already broke into the conference merch and got my original sweatshirt on today because I just couldn't wait. I'm so excited. I can't wait for all of y'all to get there. It's going to be awesome. But that's in 2 weeks, okay? We got to talk about today. Today, I have a super special friend on the podcast. She's a guest, but she's a friend. She's almost becoming a regular on this podcast, and I'm so thankful because she is the queen of fun, and I love any time I get to have my good friend Annie Downs on the podcast. So Annie, thanks for coming back, and we are just glad that the teacher of fun is back to grace us with your presence. Here. She is here.
Thank you for having me.
Not to mention with a new devotional, Chase the Fun. Come on,
yes,
girl.
It's so fun. I mean, listen, who gets to write devos about fun, right? Like, let's go.
That's true.
This is working out.
That is true. It really is so fun to like talk to you and to see the books and stuff that you're writing and putting out all about fun because, okay, like it's fun, right? Obviously, but it's not a light message. Like it's a real message of like, no, like let's actually have fun. And what does fun mean and what does it look like? So we're going to talk about fun, but I just love it. It's so needed and it needs to be taught. And so way to teach it, girl.
Thanks. And, part of the fun of it, and a lot of our friends live this life too, of like, we want to be out in the mainstream world attracting people to Jesus. Yep. And when people fall in love with the people of God, they will fall in love with God.
That's right.
I mean, that's just how it goes, right? And so we get to do these resources and these products these books that may not look as serious on the outside. I want it to look beautiful on Instagram. Yeah. I want people to want to TikTok about it because I want the cover to attract someone who may not pick up a book that is deep, but this one will bridge them to that, right? Good. So I love my seat, man. I love my lane. It is so fun.
You're such that is so who you are. You bridge the gap for so many people, and that's a gift, and that is a calling, and I love it so much. That was an original prayer we used to pray so much when LO started, was that we would bridge the gap for people who have never and would never even think about walking into a church building, to those who are absolutely on the front row praising the Lord as loud as they can. It's like, how do we bridge the gap? And we've been able to do that through podcasting and through books and everything, and you do the same thing, and it's just awesome. So
I think that one of the things that we get to do, and all of our friends listening get to do, is go, what is my lane?
Yeah.
Right? Like, not everyone is a Bible teacher, and not everyone is the person who needs to be doing the mainstream work as a faith person. Like our buddy Tim Tebow, right? Tim and Demi are really in the mainstream world. Yeah. Right? They do a ton out there. Y'all do a ton out there in the mainstream world. Not everybody's called to that. And so figuring out your lane and going, like Paul said, to run the race that's marked for me. Yeah. Right? And so it takes time before you go like, is talking about fun immature, or is it my lane?
Wow.
It's like, oh, this is my lane. This is how God made me. Like, this is something I get to do for the kingdom that's different than anybody else is doing.
I love that. Come on, girl. I am so glad that you just went with that, because I was about to botch a question I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you a question, and I was like literally thinking in my mind, how am I going to phrase this? And then you answered the question I would have botched. So thank you.
Great.
When I was, I am no professional podcaster, so sometimes my questions don't come out smoothly.
Yes, you are.
But listen, this is the thing. I was literally going to ask you, because when people have already been on the podcast, I don't always ask them what's the best piece of advice they've ever been given. But sometimes I'll shape it to that person. And as I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, I could ask her about leadership, and I could ask her about writing, but I could ask her about podcasts. I mean, I could ask your advice for so many different things, because you're a teaching pastor. You do all these things. Mm-hmm. And then you just throw out this piece of advice of know what your lane is. And I'm like, that is literally it. That's it right there. That is the piece of advice that I would want to learn from you. And that's what I see you live so beautifully, is owning that. And you're right. So many people, they either compare themselves to someone else's lane, wanting to be that person, or they compare themselves in such a way that they're like, well, what is fun? It needs to be bigger. It needs to be deeper. It needs to be more thought out. But if everybody did that, we wouldn't have the message that everybody truly needs, which is, how do you have fun in a world that has obviously forgotten the art? And so I just love it. It's great. I love how in the book.
It's important.
It is important. In the book, you actually talk about fun being a spiritual thing. Talk to me about that. So let's just talk about the deeper level of what fun is.
Yeah, I really enjoy talking about this, particularly with you, because you and I have run around this together, this concept. But there's this feeling that fun is supposed to be escapism. Like it is fun. Like there are people who go like, well, what's fun to me is just drinking until I don't remember.
Yeah.
Right? Like I just want to drink till I don't remember. And that is actually escapism. That is not fun.
Yeah.
And so we need to look at the behaviors we're doing, whatever it is, right? Like, so I'll give you an Oreo example. I can go buy Oreos and have them in my house, and it can just be fun and release. And like, I can have 2 Oreos. Or I can go buy a box of Oreos, and what I'm actually doing is escaping from my life because I'm sad or I'm lonely or I'm frustrated. And it is the same behavior with 2 different reasons, right? And so that's what we get to do with fun. The things we're doing that we think are fun is we say, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I'm just doing this because I love being with my people. I'm just doing this because I think it's fun to be outside. I'm just doing this because I've always wanted to travel to this country. Or I'm doing this because I'm trying to get away from fill in the blank. Okay.
Wow.
So fun is a spiritual
good.
thing, because when you actually define why you're doing what you're doing, you actually have a run-in with God.
Dang.
And you go, oh, I'm doing this because I'm trying to escape from that pain I feel at my job or in that relationship that just ended or whatever. And so you go like, oh, okay, God, I need to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
I actually need to sit down and have this conversation with God that my counselor, Sadie, says a lot to me. She said to me yesterday, she said, I don't actually care so much about what you do. I care why you do it.
Wow.
Because I was going like, why do I keep struggling with this? And she was like, I want you to confess what you need to confess with me, but I mainly want to know why. What were you feeling? And so if we think of our fun, the things we do for fun, and we go like, why am I doing that? Am I going to that concert because I love being with those people, or am I going because I'm trying to impress somebody?
Dang. Yeah.
Right? And either way, honestly, Sadie, it's not that one's right and one's wrong. It's just tell yourself the truth.
Yeah.
At least tell yourself the truth about why you're doing what you're doing.
That's so good.
If you're drinking till you don't remember, just tell yourself why.
Yeah.
You'll eventually, that is enough that will make you pump the brakes enough that you often stop the behavior that's actually bad for you.
Yep. That is so good. Wow. That is so good. I haven't really
and it's just
thought
fun.
about it
We're
like
talking
that.
about fun.
I love it, but
and then it ends up stopping.
I love it because I haven't really thought about that. It's like the Oreo analogy was so great because you can go get Oreos, and in one way it can be a really healthy thing and it's fun. You eat 2, that's great. That's a good time. But then you get Oreos in a different place of your life, and it's actually just indulgence, and then you're just trying to numb pain, and then you're trying to control. I mean, it's like, whoa, that is so true. And I was actually thinking about this last night, so it's so funny you said that. So me and Christian, we are like big rom-com people, okay? And like we love watching like cheesy TV shows. It's kind of like our thing. And it's like so funny because literally last night we turned on our show that we like to watch. I won't say it because, just whatever. It's a cheesy show. But we turn it on and Christian goes, all right, let's watch the show that we don't really like. And I was like laughing because I was like, it's so true. Like we don't even really like this show, but we love to watch it. And I was thinking, why do we do this? And we do it though because it's so fun to us, because we don't like the show, but we like Christian imitates all the people and we imitate the accents and we laugh at each other, and that's fun, and it's really not about the show. It's more just about like me and Christian as a couple. Like that's our thing we do before bed. Like that's fun. And so it's true. But then there's other times in my life where I'm watching a show that I don't really care about, and that's just to escape what I really need to do. And so like that, there's the difference of like, why am I doing this? That's so good. Being healthy and staying fit are really important to me and Christian, and y'all know I like to make it fun though. And one goal I recently made is learning how to shuffle jump rope by the end of summer. And let me tell you, that takes some skill and energy, and I have a long way to go. And this summer, especially with all the exciting things going on, keeping my energy level and maintaining good health is super huge for me. One thing I love to do is AG1 by Athletic Greens. I've never been a fan of taking too many things to maintain my health because, it's just hard to keep up with, which is why AG1 makes it so easy and convenient. In one scoop of AG1, you get 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients. It also tastes good too, which is pretty impressive. So AG1 can fit into anybody's diet, no matter what type of thing you go after, whether it's keto, gluten-free, all the things. And it also supports your energy and focus, which, hey, who could not use a little bit more energy and focus? And it's not caffeine, which is good because I don't drink caffeine, so that's really helpful. So not only do I love Athletic Greens and how it tastes, but Christian does too. Like I mentioned, we both like to stay in the best shape we can, so it's great for both of us. Athletic Greens, like I mentioned, is keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting great. So what's not to love? To make it easy, Athletic Greens is actually going to give you an immune-supporting free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase if you visit athleticgreens.com/whoa today. Again, simply visit athleticgreens.com/whoa to take control of your health and give AG1 a try.
Because often a thing you can pay attention to in yourself when you're doing something that sounds fun to you is this time that I'm doing this, is it breeding connection or is it isolating me?
That's good. That's a good
right.
distinction.
So you and Christian watching these shows together, that's breeding connection. Who cares if you hate it? I mean, you can watch Food Network and like make fun of the recipes
Absolutely.
And not like anything, but it's breeding connection.
Absolutely.
And then when you're trying to procrastinate from something you're meant to do, or all your friends have gone out and you feel left out, so you binge a TV show, you're breeding isolation.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy.
Yeah.
And so we go for that's the trick about
That's
fun.
good.
Is I actually think along with everything else, we make space for everything in our life that makes us healthy or happy. And hopefully it's both.
True.
But sometimes it's not. And so if you want to have fun, you've got to put it on your calendar and treat it just like everything else that is part of a healthy life for you.
True. I love that. I love how you talk about like planning fun. Because you even said, like, even if you don't know what you're going to do, just like put on your calendar, Saturday, I'm going to have fun. And you actually talk about how a lot of times people don't have fun because they don't know what to do. And so they're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yes.
And then you just don't do anything. And so you said, start with planning when you're going to have fun and then plan what you're going to do when you have fun. I love that. Is such good advice. So say you're the person that's like, okay, I'm just gonna have fun Saturday. Like, what does that actually look like to prepare to have fun, but not really know what that looks like yet?
Yeah, so a lot of our friends, you and I share a lot of the same type of friends of people who are busy, people who are active, and people who have a lot going on. Not everybody, but there's a bell curve, right? Like, and so fitting that time in really matters. So I really just say start with 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Put 30. You don't have to make it your whole Saturday because that's so intimidating.
That is intimidating.
Like that's like remember when we used to babysit? Well, you have a child now, so you don't babysit. But when we used to babysit, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, we played all the games and I've been here 1 hour and I've got 4 more hours, right? I mean, that could happen on a day if you tell yourself we've got to have fun all day. But if you say, hey, on 30 minutes on Saturday or 30 minutes on Sunday, I'm going to do something fun. And then what ends up happening, you alluded to, what ends up happening is during the week when you're sitting with your roommates or when you're sitting with your family or sitting with your boyfriend or your husband and you go, hey, Saturday afternoon, we've got a 30-minute window of fun. What are we going to do? What sounds fun to you?
That's good.
Is the question.
That's good. I like that.
And what you start doing is you go like, oh, here's what sounds fun to me. Here's what sounds fun to you. And if you will ask what sounds fun to you and then kind of say why a couple of times, you get this real heart answer.
That's cool.
And a lot of times it has to do with what people miss about their childhood.
Wow.
And so you're learning something really innocent about each other. And then you try it on Saturday. You go, so for example, a friend of mine gave me a blow up kayak this summer. And because there's a bunch of girls who kayak together. And I was like, I would love to do that. And they gifted me an inflatable kayak.
That's awesome.
And so I've tried it once and it was fine. And but you know what I did? This will surprise you at all, Sadie, because you know me so well. I like blew it up and I threw it in the water and I got in. And then I was like, well, I should have like tried it on land one time because now if I tip over, I'm swimming.
Yes.
Versus, and it was like I had put too much air in it and I wasn't comfortable, but then I was out in the middle of the lake and I couldn't fix it. So my first time of doing the thing that I thought was fun, I liked it. And I knew I wanted to make some adjustments.
That's good.
So this weekend, I'm making some adjustments and doing it a little bit different. And that's what we get to do if we will just put it on our calendar and inviting other people in, even if it's one friend, where you say, hey, I'm going to do something fun on Saturday. I'm going to do it by myself because I've been with people all week. But will you help me brainstorm up what I should do with this 30 minutes?
Good.
I mean, it's getting a Coke Icy. It's going on a walk. It's going to your favorite store and just perusing. Yeah. Any of that, anything. It doesn't have to be big and expensive. It can be really simple.
I love that. That just takes the pressure off because it's true. It's like weirdly fun does add pressure sometimes because you don't know what to do. I remember when Honey was, she had to have been maybe 2 months old. It was like 8 weeks. She was not old at all. She was like baby. Like all she does is, spit up and eat and sleep and that stage. And I am kind of like a doer. Like I'm like, let's go do something. Let's go hang out. Let's go blah, blah, blah. And I remember sitting on the couch there just holding her, and I literally Googled what to do with an 8-week-old. I'm like, am I supposed to be like doing something? Like, can I make this more fun for her? Can we like bond in some other way than just me?
Am I making her smart enough? Do I need to be reading?
Should I be reading books? But she doesn't even even though her eyes are closed. Like, I'm like, what do I do? Right. And I remember it was funny because a lot of people had Googled stuff like this and there's really not a lot to do. It was just like little things, talk to them, it was get something that's black and white and let them see it, let them see your face. And there's just no pressure in it. And I was like, okay, good. Like I actually don't have to like go do something crazy. It's not the time yet to go blow up a swimming pool. It's not the time yet to go buy balloons or bubbles even. Like it's just the time to sit and to talk and to, show her little shapes. And it took the pressure off. And I think that's a lot of the things of what you're talking about. It's like sometimes you think, well, it should be more fun because you're comparing your fun to what you see on social media, or you're comparing your fun to what someone else's fun is, instead of your fun just being simple, your fun just being that. Okay, what do you think about this? So like I think like a lot of college students especially would say like, okay, sleep is fun, right? Like because they don't sleep, or like even people that travel a lot like we do, the sleep is so fun. Like, I just want to sleep. Do you think that is, like, fun? Or do you think that's, like, a necessity that we're kind of, like, depriving ourselves from? Does that make sense? Like, is this, like, something that should be our fun? Or is this something that we should actually, like, we need to actually sleep?
Yeah, I think it can be both, right? Like, I think a nap on a picnic blanket out at a park for 30 minutes is like so fun for me. Like, it's like such a gift, But when I think about, if I have the list of things that I can't live without, that I absolutely are necessary for me to like feel like the best version of Annie, it is sleep, it is food, it is moving my body, it is community, and it is fun. That like, so to me, yes, that all is part of the same thing. But an interesting thing that when you're talking about Honey that is along the lines with this is I bet there are friends of ours who are listening who they are in bed and they've been in bed for a long time because they're depressed or they're anxious or they are sick in some way. And they think, well, I can't have fun because all I get to do is sleep. Yeah. Right. And one of the things you said that I just fit so beautifully into this, Sadie, is when you said all you needed for Honey was something black and white. Yeah. Right. And so for any of our friends where sleep is the fun right now because it's all their body can do, all you need is something black and white. Good. You don't need something in color, right? So just get a deck of cards and learn how to play a card game that you can do by yourself in your hands. Yeah. Or just start cross stitching. Yeah. Or just start, start doing something. If you're able, if the reason that sleep is your fun is because of mental health, can you get up and go on a 10-minute walk? Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Maybe 5, but to me, you said it beautifully. That's the black and white, right? That's the simple 8-week-old It doesn't have to be complicated. It can start with a 5 or 10 minute walk. It can start with cross stitching.
So
it can
good.
start with playing cards. It can start with something so simple that has space to grow. But if sleep is your ultimate fun right now, let's bring in something, an 8-week-old version of what else fun could be.
I love that. That is so good. Yes, I know so many people that are speaking directly to you. So get the black and white. Get the simple things out.
Yeah.
And learn to have fun with those things. That's awesome. Okay, so I gotta tell you, you recently got to do something that I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. You do a lot of things that I think are so cool, but you did an interview with Joyce Meyer, which I think is so cool.
She's so
cool. I've never met her.
Yeah. I mean, like, that feels like our, like, grandmother in the faith, right?
It does. Like, if I would be geeking out to talk to her just because I've listened to so many of her talks, and like she's a grandmother in the faith. Like, you know, she really is. Okay, so y'all talked first of all, just how was that? Was that cool?
Yeah, so her podcast, there are 3 other hosts, and then they kind of zoom her in or zoom quotes of hers in.
Oh, okay,
and so she wasn't actually there for me. I mean, I've met her, but she wasn't there for me. Yeah. It was, her voice was there, but it's still unbelievable because you're like, Joyce Myers knows I am a person? Like, why? Why? She is like Joyce Meyer.
I know.
It's amazing. Their team is incredible. She's one of the people that people like you and I feel like we should be able to go on professional development field trips to her office and be like, how do y'all do this?
Yes.
Like, how can we impact? Because you and I both have this hope to make a massive impact with our lives. And that doesn't have to be numbers. Everyone listening wants to impact with their lives.
Absolutely.
But she has figured out a way to let her resources and her gifting go a long way by empowering a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, teach me how, Joyce Meyer. But her team is awesome.
It's so cool.
They're like so kind and so fun. It was awesome.
We really should do stuff like that, because even when you're like, oh yeah, she has 3 different people you talk to. I mean, like, she's just organized something so her team has so like efficient. That's awesome.
And everyone feels on mission.
Which
is true about y'all. That's what's true in y'all's office. It's true in my office, to go like, we are so lucky that the people who work alongside the thing God has put in us are like, yes, that is a mission.
Exactly.
And her whole team is like that. It's awesome.
That is cool. That's when you get stuff done. Is when you have a team behind you or a team around you. And for those listening, you might be like, well, I don't have a team. Your team is your community. Who are the people around you who are on the same mission in life as you? So I want to ask you, because y'all talked a lot about bravery, and it made me think about just your bravery in life. I mean, you've obviously had a lot of brave moves. You moved literally from Atlanta to Nashville. I mean, you've had moves and stuff like that. But your bravery to even start your podcast and start writing and start doing all your stuff, because like so many people look at you and they're like, that's Annie Downs. Like, she's my favorite. I love her podcast. I love her books. But like, Annie Downs had to start it at some point too. Like, you had to have a start. So, you know, take us back to when you started and just the bravery to believe in yourself and what God was doing in you, to say, I'm going to put this out there.
Yes. I'm going to use honey again, in that it starts black and white. Right? It starts really small, and all of it, you know, like, I wrote my first book the first book that's called Perfectly Unique, that came out 10 years ago, literally 10 years ago this month.
Wow.
And I wrote it for a group of high school girls that were meeting in my living room once a week.
Wow.
And every week I just wrote them a lesson, and they would come over and read it. And then at the end of the semester, one of the girls said, hey, Annie, would you like print one more of these and staple it like a book so I can give it to one of my friends? And I was like a book? Did I just write a book?
Wow.
I mean, that's I didn't start to write a book. I started by serving my local church.
That's good.
Right? And so everything starts small, and that is good. If you one of my fears for some of our friends who are influencers right away because of, their parents do something, or they get discovered on TikTok, right? Like, part of me is afraid that they don't know what it's like for small beginnings. Yeah. And small beginnings really matter. Now, what a lot of those people will tell you is, well, I used to make YouTube videos that nobody watches, right? Or
yeah, that's true.
And so everybody's had a version of that. But so for me, that's what the courage looks like is, will you do the next right thing, right? Will you do the next little step? And I'm sitting in it again, Sadie, that's the reality that I want all of our friends to hear. And you know that too, like, we make a decision here and we say yes to this and we start writing and then we start podcasting because one person wanted me to interview them and I enjoyed it. And so then I called a bunch of my friends in Nashville and said, can I bring my microphone to your living room?
Yeah.
Right? And 2 times I didn't record the conversation correctly and had to go back and redo it with the guests.
Yep.
I mean, awful.
That is awful. Luckily, the one time that happened to me where I pressed the wrong button and didn't record it, it was the interview I did with my grandma, so it wasn't too detrimental. That's a true story. I said to Mama, we have a problem. I hit the wrong button.
Man, you know my famous story about Tu Mama is she taught me how to tie a bow.
Yes.
And every time I put a dress on that has any kind of bow on it, I'm always like, okay, what did Tu Mama tell me to do?
That's so funny.
At your wedding. It was at your wedding. She retied the bow on my dress at your wedding.
That does not surprise
She's
me
awesome.
at all. That is so funny.
She's amazing.
That is so good.
So that's what it is it's small beginnings and being okay with that. And then what happens is the next beginning is a little bit bigger, but it's still smaller than what you're going to end up doing. Yeah. And here I sit 10 years into my career, and I've just come off of 3 weeks where I'm telling you the Lord said to me the most, wisdom and courage. Mm-hmm. Wisdom and courage. And those have to go together. That's like good. The way you and I want to lead and the way you and I want to do ministry for the rest of our lives and be in relationship with our friends on the other side of our work is with wisdom and courage. Because you can be brave and not be wise. Oof. You can say a lot of stuff that's really controversial and really push, and you're not afraid of what people are going to say. But if it's not wise, it's a waste. That's right. And you can have wise words and not have the courage to actually say them. And so I want to be both, but that takes me being brave. Even in a podcast I recorded today, I had to ask a couple of questions to the guests that were a little more challenging than I usually am because I needed her wisdom and I had to be brave enough to ask.
That's good.
Right? So it doesn't stop. That's the trick about courage is it doesn't stop asking you. It just says, okay, you know how your muscles were this strong to lift that thing? There was 10 pounds. Here's the 15-pound version. Here's the 20-pound. I mean, you know this. You know this in your work and in your life. Like, it's one level of courage to marry Christian. It's another level of courage to have a kid.
That's true. Yeah. And you don't.
It just keeps growing.
So true. And it really is like, it's the same with working out. You grow muscles, but you don't always see the process, you know. Some people do. My husband, he does. He has big muscles. But sometimes you don't. Like, I work out too, and I don't.
Yes.
That doesn't happen to me like it happens to him, you know? But I know I'm getting stronger because I'm lifting heavier weights. Yes. And it's the same in life. Yes. It's the same in ministry. It's the same with my family. It's the same with all things. It's like the more you put into something, even if you cannot see the outcome, you are growing. You are getting stronger. And I love that wisdom and courage thing because you know what? It is actually very dangerous to be brave and to not be wise. I was just thinking about that. That's actually very dangerous because think about it like this. If you're going skydiving and you have all the bravery in the world to jump out the plane, but you don't get the parachute because you're not wise enough to prep, you're going to die, you know? Like, that's just like the fact.
Yes.
And so to be fearless and to not have wisdom is completely reckless, you know? But then again, to be wise and to not be brave, I mean, you can't go.
What a waste.
You can't go anywhere. So that is that is a great combination. My Christian and I, we always pray words over honey, and a lot of times the words would be contradicting. Like right now, like we pray that she would be sweet and strong, which that might seem like a contradiction, you know, because a lot of people that are very strong are not very sweet. Vice versa. We pray that she would be confident and humble all the time, you know, these two things. And so I'm going to start praying that she would be wise and that she would be courageous because that is such a good combo. I love it. Man, this is good. This is good. I love talking to you. It just, that's good. Whoa, that's good. See, that's why the podcast is called that. It just naturally comes up.
It is so, and I'll tell you for all of us, every single one of us that are, you and I and all of our friends listening, everyone's on the internet. Mm-hmm. And if we can be wise and courageous on the internet, that's what's going to change the world.
That's right.
If we're just going to be using our social media to be brave but not be wise, you are going to blow up your public life and your online world. Boom. Whether you have 10 followers or 10 million followers.
Yep.
And so, man, we've got to put them together. And I actually, what I'm doing right now in my morning study in scripture is I'm trying to find where Bible characters were wise and courageous at the same time.
Cool. That's cool.
Because I'm like, they had to have put those together, and so that's what I'm looking for that right now.
When are you doing this series? Because we are going to be listening. We're going to be Crosspoint Online.
That's right.
We are going to be listening.
You know how this goes. We got to live it first, and then we'll teach it.
That's true.
So I'm still trying to learn to live it.
Next year, send us the link to the series. That's so good. I love it so much. When you so you write a book kind of accidentally, and you staple it together, you give it to the girl. When was it that you said, "Oh, wow, I'm actually an author"? Did you have a moment where you had this you saw it for what it was? Because you know what's crazy? This people are not gonna probably believe this, but this is true. You know what is crazy? I have been doing what I'm doing for 7-ish years now, as far as speaking and stuff. 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. 19 was when I spoke for the first time, really. I'm 25, 6 years. And okay, so we were just talking about how I started the website 6 years ago, kind of started a lot of stuff 6 years ago. And what's crazy is I've been speaking a lot since then. I've been podcasting, writing books, all that stuff. But it really didn't hit me that I'm God made me to do this until this year at Passion, when I had COVID and the flu, and I watched my message be given to a room of 65,000 people, and I was weeping, and I was like, God put me on earth to do this. It was which you would think, Sadie, how did you not have that before? And I'm sure I've had that before. I've had moments of that before. But I've always had a lot of insecurity tied to that, or even that false humility in the sense of saying no, it's not about me, it's not about me, it's not about me, and not just allowing me to say for a second, actually, it's not about me, but it is what God's done in me. It is what God's created in me, and it is what he's called me to do, and it's what he's walked with me to do. And I think for so long I just didn't own that. And when I was watching Passion this year, it was such an out-of-body experience, because I'm watching what God was doing through me. Because whenever I'm on the stage and I'm preaching, I don't know about you, it's you're thinking about that moment. You're thinking about so much of what you're doing, and then later you're okay, I hope God was able to just use that in whatever way he wanted to. But in this moment at Passion, I have the flu, I'm out. So I'm watching from afar, and I'm whoa, God's actually doing something through me. This is so powerful. And it wasn't that it was like I said, it wasn't that it was the first time that I was oh, God's called me to do something. It was just the first time that I saw what he was doing in my life. And I was whoa. Okay, I need to be confident in what he's doing, and I can see that now, and now I'm just gonna run and go for it. And it felt just like a new chapter of maturity for me, because it was letting go of some of that insecurity, letting go of some of that. Did you have a moment for you where you saw it, this is what God's doing in my life, that you kind of owned it? Because I think for a long time you can be oh, no, I'm not really an author, I'm not really this. But then it comes to a point where it's no, you actually totally are. You put out a couple books, you have a podcast. Did you have a moment where you just kind of owned what God was doing?
Yeah, I mean, that is such a cool story, Sadie. And I think you're right. I read in a book this weekend that John Eldredge wrote, and he says God is most concerned with our maturity. Right. And so he lets us experience things that make our muscles stronger in a lot of ways and set us up for whatever's coming next. So part of me, if we were sitting at lunch or something, I'd be so why did you need that? What do you think's coming? Because that's whenever God gives me an Ebenezer stone moment like that, it usually means I need you to remember this so that when we are there, you won't forget. Right? You won't forget that this is me. Right. Yeah. So I think the one that's coming to my mind is when I've done 2 legs of our That Sounds Fun podcast tour. And we didn't know if it would work. We had never done anything we don't know if a live podcast recording works with my friends on the other side of the work. Like, we don't know if we had a stand-up comedian with us. Was he going to be funny? I like talk at the beginning, and then there's a comedian, and then we do a thing called fun coaching, and then we do a live podcast. And we were in Charlotte, and I remember I came off stage when it was over, and I grabbed my manager by both her shoulders, and I was like, this is the most Annie thing we've ever done. I was like, this is
That's
it.
Cool.
This is it. And so the reason that matters is because it was a new thing that I didn't know. And as we've kept doing it, there have been shows that have been just that great, and there have been shows that have been really hard. I mean, I had to do one show with a migraine the whole time. So I'm like almost puking. When I am off stage, my head, I'm laid down on the ground when I'm off stage. And then they're like, you've got 5 minutes. And I was like, Jesus, take the wheel, right? Like, we've got to do it, right?
There. Yes.
And so I think there are times like, so we're giving two really interesting examples for people to bring into their own stories of like, sometimes when you start something new, God goes, yes. Don't give up. Pin this text from God, because you need to remember as you're starting something new that this is right, and it will get hard, and it will get easier, and it will get bigger. Exactly. But you got to do it. And then there's other times like with you where you're in the middle of it and God goes, new levels. I'm giving you new levels and I need you to see what everyone else sees. And it is. And so what a gift when he does that for us.
Yes, because I think what it was for me, he's like, you got to stop doubting what I'm doing. Like, get on board with it. Like,
get on board with this, Sadie.
Just like, get on board, which obviously I'm on board. Like, obviously I'm all in. But talk like it, but act like it, talk like it, believe in it. And I think what it was for me is like, okay, for instance, this week I'm with Louie and Shelley, who most of you guys know. They're leaders at Passion City Church. I love Louie and Shelley. But like, I always will be like a little bit nervous around mentors of mine, you know, like I'm not going to tell them what I have going on. Like, they're going to ask and I'm going to underplay it. I'm going to whatever. This past week I was with them and I was like, I got to show y'all my new LO worship stuff that we're working on. And because this is something I'm really excited about. Now, that's something I would have never like said before because I would have been too nervous. I would have been like, well, what if they don't think it's good? Or what if blah, blah, blah. All the excuses. But like, I know that's something God's moving on. I know that's something God's breathing in. So I want to tell them, no, hear this, like, listen to this. And what was so cool is they were so excited to listen to it. And they were like, Sadie, this is incredible. Like, God is so in this. And I think that's what it is. It's like, Sadie, like, invite people in to see what God's doing because it isn't about you. You're not even making it about you because you can't even make it about you, you know? And so I think, like, for people who are listening to this, I know that this is an interesting example because not everybody's going to go speak at Passion. Not everyone's going to do a That Sounds Fun camp. But it's like, what is God doing in your life that you need to get on board with, that you need to, you know, stop being insecure about, stop trying to hide from people, but just own and let people see because people aren't seeing you, they're seeing God. People aren't seeing your weaknesses, you're seeing his strength. People aren't even seeing how good you are because you're seeing how good God is. You know, it's like, what is that for you? And so I just love it. I mean, it's just been an interesting thing I've walked through this year. And I think for you, it's like, I was so interested in that for you because you do so much and you're so humble and you're so kind, but you also invite everybody in.
That's really kind.
To see, like, you're like, no, this is good because this is God. Like, I want you guys to be a part of this fun stuff. I want you guys to listen to this podcast because it's so good, you know? I just think it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, you're saying such an important thing because there are times where it is really easy for all of us to say, I'm all in on Jesus. I'm all in on Jesus. I'll do what he says. Yeah. I'll go where he tells me to go. But it is another level of maturity and health to say, I am all in on how Jesus is using me.
That's it. That's it. Because for me, that's what I'm saying. I'm all in on Jesus. I just have not been all in on him using me. Because I'm like, why me? Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like what Moses said, why me, God? He's like, I am who I am. It's not about you. It's I am the great I am. And so, like, I just always get stuck in that. Like, oh, I'm all in on you. I'm just not all in on me. I tell God all the time. I tell God all the time, I don't doubt you. I doubt me. You know, like, I'm not stressed about you coming through. I'm stressed about me coming through. Like,
That's 100%. Like, you're not the problem here, God. I am very sure of the problem here. And it is me. You need to pick someone else. You need to pick somebody else because you're going to do this right and I'm going to screw this up somehow. So you better be sure. And what is consistently true about God is that he is like, I am not worried about where you can mess things up because that is actually where God shines.
Beautiful.
Is the cracks where we don't. And so let him.
That's what it was for me at Passion this year. It was being okay with God using me. It was saying, okay, God, I don't know why you chose me. I really don't. But if you did in this way, here I am. I say yes, and I'll keep saying yes, and I'm okay with it, and I love it. I'm grateful for it. It's just cool. It's just so cool. I love what you said about how, there was this moment where you said, this is the most Annie thing ever. But then you had hard moments after that. That is so real. Here's the thing, friends, those who are listening. Just because it gets good doesn't mean it doesn't still become hard. There are so many, there's a challenge every day. For me, there's a challenge every day for everybody. There's a challenge no matter how good your life looks. And Ben Stewart said this the other day, thought it was so good. He said, there are some moments that I will go and I will preach and people will literally stand up, get saved, it'll be amazing. And there are some places I will go and speak and I don't know if literally anybody heard a single word I said. He said, but it's not about the outcome, it's really about the obedience is what I'm responsible for. And I thought that was so good. It's like, friends, whatever you're wanting to start, whatever you're wanting to go after, whatever you feel like God created you to do this thing for, it's really not about what all you'll do. It's about, will you obey? Will you say yes? Will you have the faith to believe him for it, even when you can't see it? And, when you stapled those pages together and gave it to a girl, I mean, I can't imagine you really thought that was going to turn into a couple of books. And, I mean, come on, God.
Can I tell you a ridiculous story about Dairy Queen real quick?
I would love that because I
Thank
do
you.
find myself there often.
Thank you. I wish this was about Whole Foods, but it's not. It's about Dairy Queen. But I went to Dairy Queen a couple of weeks ago, and there's this one in town on West End, if you remember, and you have to walk into it. And so I'm walking into it, and I'm getting my Oreo Blizzard, and as I am ordering, this girl walks in behind me, and she's crying, and she's by herself. And I order and I step to the side and immediately this would happen with a lot of our friends listening. Like immediately my God radar goes up, like my Holy Spirit radar goes up of like, oh man, I was just trying to come to Dairy Queen and now there's like a ministry thing here, right? Like now there's a woman crying in the Dairy Queen and what am I going to do? And I was like, nah, I'm just going to walk out. I'm just going to walk out. She isn't trying to get bothered by me. If you're crying in a Dairy Queen, there's something going on, right? And so I get my Blizzard and she's ordering, she's standing back and she's still teary. And I go to walk out and I mean, as sure as I'm sitting here, the Lord is like, go back. Dang. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to be that girl who bothers this girl in the Dairy Queen, So I pretend like I'm going back for napkins and I go back and get my napkins and I walk over to her and I'm like, hey, my name's Annie. Are you all right? She's like, yeah, it's just I'm really sweaty. I've just been working out. And I was like, okay, I mean, are you sure? Cause we both ended up at Dairy Queen at the same time. So if there's anything you wanted to say or anything you need to talk about, she said, nope, I'm fine. And I left. And I have no idea if I'll ever see, there's not like a great ending, right? Of like, and then she got saved. And then the next Sunday she was at church. And then she posted on Instagram. I have no idea what will ever happen with her. But what I do know is that God gave me the opportunity to obey him and never know the results.
That's so good.
Right? So I had to talk to the girl that was crying at the Dairy Queen. She may have just been working out. Listen, I'm 42 years old. I know what it looks like when somebody cries. She's crying. But, so what Ben Stewart said is so deeply true because that experience may have been for the girl crying at the Dairy Queen, or it may have been for me to practice. Can I obey God when it doesn't make sense? And can I still believe it was obedience when I don't get a result that I thought I would get?
That's so good.
Right? And we just still do. Still talk to the crying girl at the Dairy Queen because one time it will make a difference in a way that you'll know.
Annie, that's so good. And it's true because I think a lot of people, even in that situation, they would go to doubting if they really heard God. It's like, well, maybe, did I really hear you say that? But like, you heard him say that. And it's like, you don't need her to have that response that you thought she would respond to for you to be affirmed that that's really what God said to do. It's like God's doing something that you can't see, and whether that's in her or whether that's in you, and trusting that that's enough. I mean, it's so true. I've had moments where I've gone and spoken and it's been great and it's been awesome. And I've had moments where I've gone up to someone and tried to have a conversation and it didn't go anywhere. And I was like, okay, I had a very similar situation where a mom really wanted me to go talk to her daughter. Like, she was like, she's going through a hard time. I really think you can help her. And I really believed I could too. And I was like, this is going to be great. That conversation did not really go anywhere, it just didn't, I mean, I tried and I taught, but she was just really set in her way, and she was choosing to go down the path she was going to go down, and there's really nothing I could do or anybody could do. I mean, literally, she was going to have to allow herself to be convicted by the Lord, and so it's like Ecclesiastes 11 talk about this a lot, how it's like, you don't know the ways that God's moving. This is a lot of paraphrasing, but you don't know the way that God's moving. It says, but continue to sow your seed in the morning and don't be idle with your hands in the evening. I quote that all the time because it's so helpful to me. I don't know what God's doing in this situation. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why you're responding like that, but I'm going to sow my seed, and in the evening, I'm not going to be out of my hands. I don't have to see how it prospers. I don't have to know what happens, but like, God, you're gonna do whatever you want to do with that seed, and that's been so huge for me, and such a good word. And it's so true about the Dairy Queen thing too. It's like, hey, look, you're sowing your seed, and God can move how God wants to move in that. It's so good.
And when we get to practice listening to him, right? Like, one time we'll hear the whisper, turn left instead of turn right, and it's because turning left saves our lives.
That's true.
Right? And so he gives us a lot of opportunity. He gives me a lot of opportunities. And I think I think this is a common thing he does for people who are listening to him. He gives us opportunities to practice hearing him when it's not game time. Like, just like a football team who runs the plays Monday through Thursday so that Friday night, under those Friday night lights, they can run the plays. He lets us practice running the plays. Like that conversation you had with that girl, we run those plays on the practice field, and sometimes you're like, is this a game or not? And he's like, doesn't matter.
Run the
play.
I love that.
Run the play. And then sometimes you're like, I am in the game. I can tell I'm in the game. And so I'm glad I practiced.
Because here's the thing that's so true. The girl that I went to and talked to about that, it didn't go anywhere. But I've been in a very similar situation with another girl that I baptized at the end of the night in the bathtub at the house. So it's like, you got to run the play. You don't know what's going to happen, but that's so good. And it's so true about hearing the voice of the Lord. Like, I heard the Lord say something to me recently, and I literally said, I was like, God, no. I felt like the Lord was telling me this is just funny because my teammates are going to listen to this, but to wash my team's feet, like to get on my knees and wash their feet and teach them how to lead by serving. And literally when I heard that on the plane, I was like, no, God, I'm not doing that. I'm like, no. And it wasn't because I think their feet are stinky. It's not that. It was just, I was like, that's going to make everybody feel so awkward. Like, I don't want to, like, that. That's just, I don't think so, God. And God kept saying, wash their feet. And I was just like, man, which ended up being something so much deeper in me that I needed to talk out with God about leadership. And it's a personal conversation, but being transparent with you enough to know that what happened is I did wash their feet. And there was like not a dry eye in the room. And we prayed over each other and I washed their feet. And honestly, I feel so connected to my team and so on mission with our team. We are on mission together. And you know what? I'm so glad I heard his voice and I obeyed. And I didn't leave it with God. That would be awkward. Like, just like you could have been like, I'm not going to ask her why she's crying. That could be weird. But it's like, you don't know what that leads to. And sometimes it leads to those moments where you say, I don't know what that was. And sometimes it leads to the most incredible moments of your life. So, man, Annie, I love it. Every time we talk, it just is incredible to see where the conversation goes. I have one more quote from you that I feel like is very relatable to this moment. It says, your feelings can ride, but they don't get to drive. And I just love that. And I think that's true with listening to the voice of God. It's like you can have those feelings of saying like, yeah, this is awkward, or that's going to feel weird, or that's going to be, uncomfortable. But that doesn't get to drive what I'm actually going to do. Because at the end of the day, that has to bow to what I'm called to do, what the Lord called me to do. And so thanks for being just a great leader, a great friend, a friend to so many people, and the chief of fun. We sure do love having you on the podcast.
Thanks, friend. I love getting to talk to you too. Every time I walk away better. So thank you. I love you so much.
Love you.